attack, fast fatal heart impact, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and packs. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet now. Get ready for defeat now.
Well, that song seems appropriate. Anyways, now, hello everybody, this is Kira's show here. Now, whenever we last left off, Midoriya, he has taken on this new identity, the Punisher. Now, before I do begin, I am aware I forgot to put this in the last part. Whenever Midoriya was shot in his head, he got a metal plate put in his skull. And he actually does still have a scar, since it takes years for those scars to eventually fade. Well, any scars actually. Now, I do want to state that. Now, if it wasn't obvious, let's begin. Midoriya, he is thinking tonight. He has some of the training, some of the know-how and technique, along with the fact that his dad did train him properly. So, he does want to start doing this. However, he's going to try and figure all this out first. He can't just head straight for the judge. If he does, then it's going to be suspicious. One day, the judge goes on a court case and tells a kid that he will not convict a man who allegedly murdered his parents. And the next week, the guy shows up dead. Yeah, that will not look good on Midoriya's part. Especially since this is going on. Now, Midoriya does head out tonight, and he begins his little crusade. He is nervous, however, as he starts with the man who killed his parents. I didn't give him a name. So, Midoriya heads to that bar, and he is simply just waiting, as he is at the top of a rooftop, simply watching, as the man does stumble out of the bar drunk, somewhere around 2:27 in the morning, as the clock just hit 2:28. The man beginning to stumble his way down the street, and calling someone in the phone booth to come pick him up and to come get him. Now, Midoriya, while following this man, he eventually does sneak up on him. While the guy was in the phone booth, Midoriya was directly waiting outside, with his face covering his hood. Well, his hood covering his face, and simply just waiting, as the man opens the phone booth and turns to walk out. Midoriya simply just standing there, directly in front of it, as the man who is drunk simply begins to tell the guy to move out of his way. He's got a busy night ahead of him, and, well, he's gotta go to work tomorrow. Now, Midoriya does not move. The man simply just saying that he has no idea who he's messing with. If he plans on trying to fight him or try and mug him, then you gotta know that my quirk won't allow you to do that. Oh, I'm well aware of your quirk, Midoriya says, as he immediately brings up his hand and punches the man in the face. The man stumbling backwards into the phone booth, as Midoriya rushes forward and punches him with his left hand, and begins to beat on the man. punching him over and over again in the face. Whenever he tried to create a gun in his left hand, Midoriya simply smashed it directly into the glass. As they punched a hole in the booth, the man tried to, at least, point the gun at Midoriya, who simply just kept smashing his hand further and further down, as glass gets embedded in it and eventually runs through the entire hand, and he does have to let go. Midoriya simply just punching him, and beating him more. Now, with that being said, Midoriya does actually wait. He sits down. Someone is coming for him. So, they are clearly a part of this too. Now, eventually a car does arrive, and it does see the man passed out on the sidewalk. Midoriya sets him up there, as the guy gets out of the car and walks over. As he goes to pick up the guy, he realizes that he's covered in blood. And Midoriya, he simply is standing behind the man, pulling back the hammer to the gun and pointing it to the back of his head, telling him that if he turns around, he is going to be in a world of trouble. Midoriya simply telling the man that he wants information. Alright, just don't pull that trigger. Listen, I don't know a lot, but I work as a driver for this guy, alright? Really, what does he ever have you do? Well, I simply drive him around, that's it. Really, that's all? Well, I mean, I also work for... Midoriya simply getting impatient, as he then brings a knife directly up in his other hand, and simply brings his hand up over the man's shoulder, the blade directly against his throat, telling him to spill it before he spills his blood. Now, the man goes on saying that he works for Mr. Something. Who? Listen, that's just his name. I don't know about it. It's weird. He doesn't tell us his actual name. But listen, there's some files in the glove compartment. Just take those, and I'll just act like I didn't see you. Oh, that's good. Midoriya simply spinning the gun in his hand, as he pistol whips the man in the back of the head, and puts him in the back seat, before he takes the other man and throws him in the trunk. Now, let us cut to about an hour later, as the man wakes up. It's very dark and it's, well, very cold, as he simply tries to move forwards or to even get out, as he finds a wall. He finds something touching his feet and something above his head, as he feels something hit himself in the gut, or roughly around his chest area, moving his hands around and eventually finding it. He can clearly see that it is a lighter, as he flicks it on, finding that he was buried alive, and there is a tube heading to the surface. The man just yelling for help, as Midoriya responds, telling him that he gave him one simple thing. He wanted him to go to jail. He wanted him to pay for what he did. Listen, kid, it's just business. Just business? Well, if it was just business, you wouldn't have smashed my dad's head into a wall. So, to me, it's personal. And I'll tell you one thing. You're not going to survive down there for a couple of days. Hell, if I leave you now and no one finds you, within that amount of time you will starve to death. So, give me the information I want to know, and I will make this easy. Really, kid? You really think this dime store bullshit's gonna impress me, nor intimidate me? Alright. As Midoriya simply puts a funnel on top of the tube, and picks up a bucket of water, pouring it in. The man being completely surprised whenever it makes contact with his body. It is ice cold. As Midoriya, he simply pours in about half the container. And the man is at least a fourth of the way submerged, as he's beginning to freak out a bit. This kid is serious. This isn't just some bullshit anymore. As the man begins to tell Midoriya that he can't give up his boss. If he does, he'll kill him. Well, as Midoriya pours in the rest of the container, as the man, he has to move his head upwards, up against the wooden box. Simply just saying that fine, fine, fine. Listen, you want to find him, head to this address. Or, well, listen, I don't know if he's gonna be there. It's one of those safe houses he has. I just know that he usually has some guys there. Really then? Is that it? Is that all you really know? Well, I can't really give up anything else. Otherwise, he's gonna kill you, right? How about this? Give me everything I want, now. And I won't pour the other bucket in. Alright, fuck. Now, the man simply gives Midoriya a list of names, along with saying that that judge was on his boss's payroll. And that information that links him is also at, well, his own personal safe house, his own apartment. Telling Midoriya that this is the address. Midoriya simply telling the man, thank you. But, well, he is not going to be living very long, as he brings his hands downwards, picking up the other bucket, and pouring it into the grave. The man just beginning to scream as Midoriya watches bubbles float up from this tube in the ground, the pipe he smashed into it. As eventually they stop. And Midoriya simply just walks out of the graveyard. Well, not even really a graveyard. This was in the middle of the forest. And even if anyone does find him, they're not going to be able to realize what's going on. It's just going to be a smell of rotting water. As Midoriya then talks with the man in the backseat of the car, knocking him out again and taking him to another safe house. The place that this guy mentioned, his own personal apartment. Midoriya busting the lock with a K-bar, simply stabbing it in and jimmying it, popping the lock. Now, he is thinking though, in the back of his mind, he killed somebody. However, they were not innocent. That was the man who killed his parents. He got revenge. That is all he cares about. And he's going to make sure that he can get revenge for everyone else who has not gotten it. Everyone who is simply victims of this bastard. Now, Midoriya simply brings the man into the room and looks around this warehouse or the safe house, duct taping the man to a chair and taping his mouth shut. As Midoriya simply looks around the place, walking into a room and seeing quite a number of firearms, along with looking into the drawers and onto the table. Yeah, this room is no joke. Along with actually seeing a pair of brass knuckles. Those are interesting. Him grabbing those and putting them on. They seem to be a bit loose in his hand, but as soon as he balls it into a fist, they fit just fine. Midoriya taking them off and wrapping his hands. Now, he then puts them back on and walks into this room, punching the man across the face with the brass knuckles. As he jolts awake. Now, Midoriya tells the man that he is going to give him some time to think. And if he does not listen, then this is going to be very, very painful for both of us. Now, with that being said, Midoriya, he walks around the apartment and looks at the information that is in a lot of these files, along with the stuff that he found in the glove box. This guy is a driver, yeah, but he's also involved in all this bullshit. Apparently the guy got off easy. The judge simply wavered whenever he broke the law. His sentence was deemed innocent. However, the proof is that he simply did something bad. Something very, very bad. And it pisses Midoriya off. Before he walks over and simply waves in front of him a piece of paper, asking him if all these men are innocent, or what is going on. Now, I've seen your file. You said you were innocent, but you are not. I knew you were just a simple liar. Midoriya swatting him on the head with it, before simply telling him that this was going to be easy. But since you're a criminal, I'm going to enjoy this a bit more myself. As Midoriya socks him directly in the gut with his left hand, with the brass knuckles still on, before punching him more and more across the face. Now, the man does try to plead with Midoriya, trying to scream through the duct tape, as Midoriya simply does one thing. He begins to look on his phone, and he simply puts it up to the man's face, tearing off this duct tape and grabbing him by his cheeks, splitting his jaw so that he can't even clench his teeth closed, telling the man that if he screams, he's going to put a screwdriver in his eye. Now, bite your tongue and shut up. Now, the man, as soon as Midoriya lets go, he does not listen, trying to scream out and beg for help. Midoriya taking the screwdriver and jabbing it directly downwards into the man's left leg, before pulling it out and telling the man that he said one thing. Now, that was a warning. Next time won't be so nice. Now, Midoriya then puts the screwdriver in the man's mouth, telling him to point. Point out some of the places your guys go to, and I'll mark them down. Maybe then, I'll at least consider letting you go. The man trying to call Midoriya a psychopath or a crazy lunatic. Before Midoriya simply walks over to a room and comes back out with a baseball bat. The man, he gets a bit more scared. And Midoriya, he's simply just standing there with the bat, as he begins to swing it around and break stuff inside the apartment. Now, the man does then listen, as he begins to point out some places with his screwdriver. As soon as he does that, Midoriya tells the man thanks. However, well, he's not making it out of this room. Midoriya then bringing his hands up to the man's face. Now, Midoriya then tells the man that if he was sorry about this, Or if he was even innocent, then he would feel bad. But you are just a criminal like everyone else. Before Midoriya moves his hands down onto the man's throat and strangles him to death. Before simply leaving and writing something in the ground and putting down a bit of a logo. Now, Midoriya, he then leaves, sneaking back home and drawing off most of his outfit. He sprayed himself down with a hose outside, but he is going to have to clean his jacket and head back to the storage unit, as Midoriya only gets a couple hours of sleep that night. I want to say roughly about 3 to 2.5. Waking up very groggy in the morning. As on the news, it is heard that a man was found earlier today. It seems that he was beaten and tortured inside of an apartment. The same apartment of a man who was deemed to be innocent of apparent accusations of murder. Now, Midoriya tries to act surprised, as Mitsuki simply just looks at him. Midoriya, he was asleep the whole night, and the man on the news is a different man from the one Midoriya accused. Her taking a deep breath and a sigh of relief, as they go on saying that the man also did have multiple illegal firearms. And it does seem that linking evidence to him now will be further proof, as they deem this case closed, file reopen. Now, with that being said, Midoriya does head to school, and he is a bit more of an outcast, a loner. He still doesn't really care what people think of him, let alone what they say. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed. And yes, I'm quite aware that that was very dark. You see, my mind had this thing where it sort of just thought, what is the two most common fears to ever think about? A fear of cramped spaces and a phobia of the dark. Mixing that with drowning. Put together all three and what do you have? Some seriously fucked up shit. Anyway guys, I do hope you enjoyed.